Welcome to Life Unpacked, the weekly podcast designed to help you navigate the everyday with more clarity, purpose, and intention. In each episode, we take the challenges, questions, and experiences that shape our lives and unpack them layer by layer. Through honest conversations and elevated perspectives, we explore practical insights that can help you grow, think differently, and create a better, more fulfilling life. Whether you're looking for direction, inspiration, or simply a moment to pause and reflect, Life Unpacked is your space to reset and rise. Together, we'll dig deep, open up new ways of seeing the world, and empower you to live each day with more confidence, balance, and meaning. We've all heard the advice, just follow your heart. It sounds poetic, but where does that path actually lead? Today, we're exploring the tug-of-war between our internal desires and the guidance of a true shepherd. In our modern world, we're often told to crown our heart as king. But let's dive in and discover who is really leading your life.
Today, we're grappling with, well, one of the most common pieces of advice out there. Follow your heart. We've got source material from a sermon that doesn't just question this idea, it really goes after it, calling it potentially destructive.
That's right. And our mission today is to really unpack that source material. The preacher presents this truly radical challenge to what most of us probably think is just good advice.
Totally.
We're going to explore the argument that following your heart isn't just, maybe a bit naive, but fundamentally damaging, because the heart itself is presented as flawed.
And this whole critique is set against the backdrop of humility, right? Like true selfless living.
Exactly. It all stems from this foundation, a previous discussion in the source material about humility, using that powerful image of Jesus washing the disciples' feet from John 13.
Okay, yeah, the ultimate act of service.
Right. That act defines selfless service, and it provides the context, the ethical framework for everything that follows in this sermon.
So, if humility means putting others first, lowering yourself, what does that say about our inner compass?
Well, that's the question the sermon tackles head on. It uses that backdrop of selflessness to launch its critique of the heart.
And it's important, I think, that the preacher starts with a sort of disclaimer. He emphasizes the message isn't meant to make people feel guilty or condemned.
Yeah, that's crucial.
It's presented more as necessary truth, showing how you might shift towards humility, not just pointing fingers.
That transparency is key, because honestly, the shift in perspective here is huge. The sermon jumps right into tackling this follow your heart idea.
Which is everywhere.
Everywhere. Pop songs, movies, motivational posters, Google searches. Culturally, the heart is sold as this infallible guide, your true north.
But here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit jarring. How can our heart, our emotions, our intuition be untrustworthy? That goes against so much modern thinking about self-awareness.
It doesn't try to bridge that gap. It just presents a direct contradiction. The preacher hits you with this immediate kind of sharking counter-argument. Your heart is so deceptive.
Deceptive. Wow.
And why? Because it works in the absolute opposite direction of humility. Humility looks outward. The heart fundamentally looks inward.
That's a massive claim, especially today when we value authenticity and listening to our feelings so much. Where does that conviction come from? Is it just an opinion?
No, it's grounded directly in Scripture.
Yeah.
Specifically Jeremiah 17, verse 9. That's the anchor text for this whole argument.
And what does that say?
It says, quite plainly, that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked.
Okay. Deceitful and wicked. Strong words.
Very. And to really hammer home the point, the source material uses an amplified interpretation of that verse.
Amplified? How so?
It describes the heart as exceedingly perverse and corrupt and severely mortally sick.
Mortally sick. And that completely reframes the whole internal struggle, doesn't it? It's not just slightly off, it's diseased.
Exactly. And if you accept that description, mortally sick, then the immediate takeaway is, well, you can't trust it to lead you anywhere healthy. It biases everything.
So how does this sickness, this inherent bias, actually play out? The sermon says the heart is basically one of the most selfish parts of the body.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
It only thinks about itself. It's fundamentally self-absorbed.
Okay, so if it's pathologically selfish, what does that look like in our day-to-day interactions?
Well, the source material lays out a few key consequences. First, the heart fundamentally believes that reality, the world around you, needs to conform to its desires. The world should serve the self.
Ah, I see. So it creates this bubble where everything is interpreted based on, how does this affect me?
Precisely. It's like an internal echo chamber.
Yep.
That leads straight to the second point. The heart tends to see all the good, all the justification in what I do,
Uh-huh.
while simultaneously spotting the absolute worst motives and flaws in everybody else. It's a very biased judge. Gives itself a constant pass.
Okay, now that feels relevant, especially for disagreements or conflict. If my heart is busy justifying me and judging others, what happens when someone disagrees with me, even if they have a point?
That's the critical failure point in relationships, according to this sermon. If someone disagrees with you, the heart's immediate, almost automatic reaction is something is wrong with them.
Not maybe I should reconsider, but they're the problem.
Exactly. It struggles to process disagreement without assuming the other person is flawed, illogical, immoral, just wrong.
Which connects right back to that idea about the pursuit of happiness. The heart just wants you to be happy. Sounds nice on the surface, right?
Sounds great. But the preacher argues the consequence is this constant self-elevation. You put yourself at the center of your own universe and other people's needs, perspectives, they just become secondary or irrelevant.
And the danger there, the sermon warns, is that following this internal compass leads us down paths God never intended, into perversion and impoverishment. Now, impoverishment here probably doesn't just mean money, does it?
No, not primarily. Think relational or spiritual impoverishment.
Makes sense. If everything's about my happiness, relationships become transactions.
Right. They become shallow. And spiritually, that self-focus blocks the kind of selflessness needed for real growth, real connection. The heart isn't just a bit self-interested. The sermon frames it as having a pathological problem. It can't be truly benevolent because its core design is flawed.
Wow. Okay, so if the heart is this corrupt, selfish thing, the argument pivots. It says the heart was never actually meant to lead in the first place.
Exactly. That's the core structural argument. It's designed to follow. It's just unfit for command.
How does the sermon illustrate that?
It uses this really vivid analogy. The preacher compares letting your heart lead your life to letting his own young son suddenly take charge of leading the whole church.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that. Chaos.
Right. The point isn't that the child is bad. The child is supposed to follow, listen, walk behind the parents. He simply doesn't have the capacity, the wisdom, the maturity to lead something complex.
It's not about intent, it's about qualification. We've given the heart a job it's fundamentally unqualified for.
That's the idea. And this is backed up by looking at Jesus' example. The sermon points out Jesus never said, follow your heart.
He didn't. What did he say instead?
Well, in John 14, dealing directly with troubled hearts, he says, let not your hearts be troubled, but believe in God. The instruction isn't listen to your heart more, it's settle your heart and align it with God. Put it under higher management.
So the conclusion is pretty stark then. If your heart is your main guide, you will always be misguided. Which completely dismisses that common excuse, the heart wants what it wants.
Yeah, the sermon calls that nonsense.
Why nonsense?
Because the argument is that everything in life boils down to an absolute choice. We choose whether to follow that selfish internal pull or not. The heart gives input, sure, but we choose who's actually driving the bus.
Okay, so if we make the wrong choice, if we let the heart drive, what's the evidence? How can you tell in your own life that you're being misled? The sermon uses Psalm 23 for this, right?
Yeah, this part is really practical, aimed right at you, the listener. Psalm 23 paints this picture of life when the Lord is your shepherd. What's the result? I shall not want.
Meaning peace, contentment.
Exactly. Peace, fulfillment, being led by still waters, resting in green pastures, living without that constant nagging fear or anxiety.
And here's the paradox. If your heart is your shepherd,
then you are always in want. Always.
An endless cycle of wanting more.
Constantly desiring, constantly needy, never truly satisfied. The heart operates on immediate gratification. You get the new job, the relationship, whatever. And boom, the heart instantly generates the next thing you need. It's unsatisfiable.
Which means living in constant low-grade anxiety about what you don't have or what you might lose.
Precisely. And the sermon really brings this home. It claims we naturally think about ourselves first in almost every decision. What am I doing tonight? How does this benefit me? Is this convenient for my schedule?
It's close to home.
So the sermon's test is this. If you find yourself constantly operating from a place of fear or perpetual wanting or just background anxiety, that's presented as real, tangible evidence that the Lord isn't leading you. Your heart is. That striving is the sign of a self-serving shepherd.
Okay, so we have this flawed leader, the heart, driving us towards self-interest, anxiety, and want. What's the fix? What's the ultimate goal here?
The goal is the complete opposite. Selflessness, defined as always considering the next person, the person beside you, their well-being.
Yeah.
Even when it costs you something, even at your own expense.
That's radically different from the heart's default mode.
Totally. It's the absolute antithesis.
So how do you actually do that? If my heart's been in charge, how do I fire it, practically speaking?
Well, the first step, according to the source, is just acknowledging the mistake. The preacher calls it repenting in a nice way, recognizing the heart has usurped control,
Okay.
and then choosing consciously to give that control, that leadership, back to the Lord. It's an act of surrender. You hand over the reins.
But my heart isn't going to suddenly shut up, is it? It'll still have desires, feelings, impulses. How do you handle those if you can't trust them as a guide anymore?
Great question. The sermon addresses this using Matthew 5.8, "Blessed are the pure in heart." The key isn't eliminating desires, but purifying the heart's role.
Okay, what does that mean practically?
It means the heart will still tell you what it wants, good things, bad things, selfish things. But instead of just blindly following those impulses as your compass, you take them to Jesus. They become confessions and requests. You bring the desire, the feeling, the want to the true leader and say, here's what my heart is saying. What should we do about this? You vet the input.
So impulses become requests, not commands. They have to be submitted. That's a huge shift.
It really is. And the sermon closes with this final, powerful contrast, bringing it all back to selfless love.
What's that?
Just this. Jesus died for you. Your heart can't and will never do that.
Wow.
And even if it somehow could, the preacher argues, it would only be for selfish reasons, for glory, for recognition. The heart, because of its fundamental corruption, is incapable of true, selfless, sacrificial love.
That really puts it in perspective. True humility, true selflessness requires dethroning that internal guide we cherish most, our heart, and installing an external selfless shepherd. Okay, so we've covered the danger in just blindly following your heart, the really stark language from Jeremiah about the heart's deceitfulness, and this call to give control to a better leader to find peace instead of constant want.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. Maybe the thought to leave you with is this. If you accept this premise, even just for a moment that the heart is deceitful above all things, how does that change the way you look at your own gut feelings, your spontaneous reactions, your big life goals? Does knowing the heart is maybe designed to follow mean you need to make a conscious choice, maybe every single day, about who's actually in charge?
Really powerful questions to wrestle with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden costs of following your heart and this challenging call towards radical selflessness.
Definitely food for thought.
We really encourage you to think more about the practical difference it might make, choosing a selfless guide over that internal, often selfish compass. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
The solution to a restless heart isn't more self-care. It's submitting those desires to God for true guidance. Greatness isn't found in following your own lead. It's found in the pattern of serving others. So switch leaders today. Move from the deceitful heart to the shepherd who knows the way. May you find rest in the green pastures this week. Thanks for listening to Life Unpacked. God bless you. And join us again next time as we continue to unpack life by the unfolding of God's Word.